What's happening at City Hall? How is that new Italian restaurant? How long will that road be closed? You have questions like these every day. Local news gives you the answers, and that makes it an incredible value. For a limited time, you can get a 6-month subscription to Inforum.com for just $2. Visit Inforum.com/subscribe right now.
He delivered a baby at D-Day, but the real thrill came when he delivered another 15,000 of them in Fargo. Dr. Blaine Amidon, one of the area's longest-serving OBGYNs, left an indelible mark on the community, and not just in the delivery room. Hi, this is Tracy Briggs. Welcome to Back Then. Well, if you were born in Fargo any time in the last half of the 20th century, there's a very good chance you all have the same name on your birth certificate, Dr. Blaine Amidon. Amidon delivered thousands of babies in his more than 50-year career as an OBGYN. But that's not the only thing that made him so intriguing. He was also a state champion fencer who lived in one of the city's most interesting homes. Blaine F. Amidon grew up in East Syracuse, New York, where he attended both undergraduate and medical school at Syracuse University. He paid his way through school with a number of jobs from lab technician to clerk in an off-sale liquor store. He told the Forum in a 1984 story, "That didn't sit too well with my mother, who was a dyed-in-the-wool member of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. But we were dirt poor, and I wanted to go to college." Following graduation in 1942, he married a nurse named Virginia Neff. A short time later, with World War II raging, Amidon served in the Army Medical Corps and was among the American troops who invaded Normandy on D-Day. This is what his son, Blaine III, better known as Chip, said about that day. "Dad landed on Utah Beach. I think he was actually in the second boat to land, but luckily the current washed them ashore about a quarter mile from where they were originally going to land. So there was a lot less resistance, so it was pretty easy for them to land." But the excitement was just beginning for the young doctor. He and some other medics set up camp the next Sunday when a farmer came running to them, yelling that his wife was in labor and he needed help. Dr. Amidon delivered the baby, who would later be named Virginie, after Blaine's wife, Virginia Amidon. Following the war, the Amidons went back to New York and to Ohio for an internship and residency. They welcomed daughters Diana and Sherry. Then an offer to work in Fargo came up, and the Amidons jumped at it. Amidon told the Forum in 1984, "The smartest thing I ever did was to come to Fargo." Well, it seems like he didn't like hot weather, and he wanted to practice in a group which was pretty rare west of the Mississippi at that time. He joined the staff at Dakota Clinic in 1950 and joined Dakota Hospital when it opened in 1964. During their early years in Fargo, the Amidons added 2 more children to their family, Kathy and Chip. By 1959, the family moved into their home at 1701 9th Street South. Many people who grew up in Fargo know exactly where the Amidon house is. It definitely stood out with its high-vaulted ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, and mid-century modern vibe, unusual for the stately old tree-lined neighborhood. Daughter Sherry said, "When they were building it, people would ask about what church that was being built on the corner because of the cathedral roof and the big open beams." Over a recent Zoom interview, Sherry, Kathy, and Chip were full of smiles and laughter when they reminisced about life in that home. That home, in 1974, by the way, was listed in the top 25 most expensive homes in Fargo. Its appraised value at that time? $73,000. Pretty crazy, right? The nice home was quite a step up for both Blaine and Virginia, who both had pretty modest upbringings. Sherry said, "My mom grew up in Kentucky. Her father was a pastor. Sometimes he'd get paid with apples or potatoes or chickens." So when Blaine and Virginia were able to afford something a little nicer for their young family, they got to work looking through magazines, cutting out pictures, and designing the home with the architect. In addition to the high ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows, the home had full-height fireplaces, terrazzo floors, and built-in furnishings. It was nearly 5,000 square feet, with wood and brick and geometric lines that virtually defined the mid-century style. Of course, that style today has become more popular again because of the television show Mad Men and Don Draper. The three Amidon daughters shared a room in the house. Kind of. Sherry said, "It was one room divided into three. We could open a slider and be together, or we could close them and have our own room. And everything basically was built in. Mom and Dad loved built-ins." Kathy added, "We had the best of all worlds. We could play games where we'd throw things over the beams. We had wonderful times in that room." Kathy said one of her favorite memories is when she would step out in the hallway late at night. She said, "I remember sneaking out of my room at night and crouching on the stairs and watching Mom and Dad down in the living room dancing to Mac the Knife or something like that. I used to just sit there and watch them dance." The Amidon children say their mom loved music and the arts and always wanted to be a rockette. They described her as a gracious lady and a wonderful mother who took them to lessons and activities and made sure they spent time together as a family. Sometimes that happened in Dr. Amidon's home office, where the family would talk about their week or go through National Geographic magazines and discuss the articles. Sometimes it was a little more decadent. Kathy said, "On Sunday nights, we'd have popcorn for dinner, ice cream and peanuts for dessert, while we watched The Wonderful World of Disney and Bonanza." For Dr. Amidon, one of the best features of the house was its location, less than a half mile from Dakota Hospital and Clinic, a 1-minute drive to the delivery room. If that weren't dedication enough, Chip said his dad actually added a second phone line to the house so he'd never miss a phone call. Sherry said she might actually be to blame for that. She said, "Yeah, I accidentally left the phone off the hook one day, and a policeman came to the door to get Dad because one of his girls was in labor." He always called his patients his girls. Amidon also never drank alcohol in Fargo because he never knew when he'd have to deliver a baby, something that probably pleased his WCTU mother. Family vacations were few and far between. Dr. Amidon felt too guilty leaving his patients. Sherry said, "He was always on call. No matter who was actually on call, if one of his girls was in labor, the hospital knew to call him." But sometimes Dr. Amidon would bring his kids to work with him. Kathy said, "I remember Sundays after church, we would sometimes get to go on house calls with Dad. I'd stay in the car, and he'd come back with his little black bag and maybe a basket of eggs or a pie." Despite the long work hours and the endless on-call schedule, Amidon found a new hobby, and he brought 2 of his daughters along for the ride. Sherry said, "Dad had never really done any exercise, so I don't know why he picked up fencing." It was the very early 60s, and Charles Selberg had opened the Selberg Fencing Academy in downtown Fargo. Amidon brought Diana and Sherry, who were then in their early teens, to the academy to learn about the sport, and they obviously had a knack for it. Dr. Amidon won the state men's foil championship in 1962, while eldest daughter Diana excelled even more, winning state titles in North Dakota and Kansas, before going to school in California, where she was the national fencing champion for women under 19. Sadly, Diana died at the age of 54 in 2001 from cancer. Dr. Amidon started to slow down in the late 1980s. He stopped delivering babies in 1987, but continued teaching at the University of North Dakota Medical School, where he urged the students to remember they were treating a person, not a case, and bedside manner was key. He told the forum in 1992, "I think the most important thing that any of us can do is communicate." When he wasn't teaching, he was giving lectures on osteoporosis and advocating for sex education for teens. The fencing had stopped by then, but Chip said his dad found other hobbies to keep him busy. Chip said he went all in on a couple of different things for a while. He built a train set around a big part of the basement, and he was really into candle making. I think one Christmas, everyone got candles. Kathy added, and pecan pie and chili. In 1997, Amidon, a longtime smoker, succumbed to lung cancer. Then Virginia died in 2011. Toward the end of his life in 1992, he snapped his fingers and said of his 50-year career, "It's gone by like that. However, he took special pleasure that year knowing that 2 of the babies he delivered grew up to be his fellow physicians at Dakota Clinic. They are just 2 of what he estimated to be about 18,000 babies he delivered, about 3,000 before coming to Fargo, and the rest here in Fargo, about 15,000. You'd think baby number 17,999 wasn't quite as exciting as baby number 7. Not so, he told the form shortly before his death. He said, "It is still a miracle to me. I still get a thrill hearing a newborn baby cry. I hope that thrill is something I never lose." And for thousands of now grown-up Fargo babies, it's a good thing he never did. Thanks for joining me this time on Back Then. I hope you catch us next time.